Good morning and welcome to the Foster Care and Faith Community webinar. This webinar is brought to you by the planning team of FOCUS, which stands for Family-Oriented Concept Unified to Serve. My name is Adrienne Conwell, Chair of FOCUS. We are a collaborative team of religious professionals and social service providers committed to working throughout Pinellas County on behalf of children and families. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. The chat feature for everyone is disabled. However, you can use the Q&A feature. In Circuit 6, foster care services is provided by Family Support Services, known as FSS. It has been wonderful working with them this past year. Please join me in welcoming Jacqueline Citarella, the Community Engagement and Foster Home Recruitment Manager for FSS. She joined FSS in July and has been in the nonprofit arena for over 17 years and has a passion for children in need and bridges the gap in the community. Turning it over to you, Jacqueline.
Good morning, everyone. As Adrienne said, my name is Jacqueline Citarella. And first and foremost, I wanted to thank the FOCUS planning team for allowing us this opportunity to share the mission and the work of Family Support Services and the call to action needed on behalf of the community. We have a busy agenda planned for us today in a morning of great speakers. So I just want to give you guys all a quick overview of what we have planned today. My cursor will allow me to change the screen. Bear with me. There we go. Technology is not my friend this morning. Hopefully we won't have that occur throughout the training today. So just a quick overview of today's training and a few housekeeping reminders. We ask that if you're not speaking, please ensure that your mute button is on. We encourage questions, so please utilize that Q&A to ask any questions throughout today's training. I also want to say happy anniversary to us for having the grant in Circuit 6, which services Pasco and Pinellas County for 1 year now. And throughout today's training, I will highlight some of the impact we have been making so far. So let's go ahead and get this party started. I am pleased to announce Ron Cooney, the lead pastors of ministries at Calvary Church in Clearwater, who will lead our morning devotion. Ron serves on the board of FSS, serves on our advisory council and other community agencies. Ron is also a former foster parent and current adoptive parent. I can keep going on about Ron. I don't think there is anything Ron isn't involved in or does. Without further ado, I introduce Ron Cooney.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad that you're here and glad that we could sit on this training together here this morning. And I did want to start off by reading some scripture as kind of just a foundation by which to launch here today. So I'm reading from James chapter 1. This may feel a little predictable, but this is the famous James 1:27 orphan care verse, but I'm going to start at verse 26. James says, if anyone considers himself religious and yet does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself and his religion is worthless. Religion that God, our Father, accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Pure, in terms of pure religion, means its truest form, meaning it's the real thing, it's genuine, it's acceptable, it's valuable. And religion before God means that we are worshiping him, and that is being expressed in ritual acts. These are things that we do. And in verse 26, James talks about worthless religion. It doesn't seem to matter what rituals or acts that the worshiper engages in. It's all negated by a tongue that is out of control. Now, a man may go through all the external motions of Christianity. But if he tells lies, or he speaks unkindly to people, or he gossips, or he slanders, or if he profanes God's name, then the Bible tells us that his religion is empty. And the thing is that everyone around him is going to see it, but he himself is going to remain deceived, self-deceived. The Bible says in Matthew 12 that by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. Of course, Jesus said this. So the implied contrast in the pure and undefiled religion that pleases God is that the worshiper keeps his tongue under control. Psalm 34 says, whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. But James goes beyond just controlling our tongues, and he gives us examples of the religious acts God is looking for. One of them is outward focus. He says to look after orphans and widows in their distress. You know, we live in a community where we have what we call modern day orphans. These are children who are vulnerable. They've been abused, abandoned, and are neglected. And so we come to their side and we visit them in their distress. The second focus that James provides is inward focus. He says to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. So holy living coupled with service to others reminds me of the question that Jesus was asked when the question was, what is the greatest commandment? Jesus responded by saying, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said that these two commands, everything hinges on these two commands. So he's saying that the entire Bible, this entire book right here, all of it can be summed up in two commands: to love God and love your neighbor. That word hinge is like the word picture is like a door hinge. So you have two door hinges that hold the door to the frame that is attached to the wall. And when those door hinges are operating appropriately, the door swings open and shut easily. And what Jesus is saying is everything that you read, if you want to simplify it, just love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so that happens when believers take care of those who are less fortunate and strive for personal purity. I heard a pastor say that there are 4 levels of reacting to pain in others, and I want to share that with you as I close. The first level of reacting is pity. Pity says it's too bad that you're hurting. Pity is the person who stopped at the red light, who sees the person holding the cardboard sign that says, God bless, anything helps, and just keeps the window closed and just says, wow, it's too bad that you're in that situation. The second level is sympathy. Sympathy is, I'm sorry that you're hurting. Sympathy might be somebody that rolls the window down and hands that person $1 or a $5 bill or a cold glass of water, and then hurriedly shuts the window back up. But sympathy says, I'm sorry that you're hurting. Empathy, the third level, is that I hurt with you. You've been around people who are empathetic. That person might actually not just roll down the window, but might wave that person to the Chick-fil-A parking lot and say, let me have lunch with you today and let me hear your story. That person might cry with that other individual, or may rejoice. Maybe there's some things that they have connections over, and maybe that person's able to help them find a job or something like that. But it's empathy is, I'm hurting with you. But the fourth level is compassion. And while pity says it's too bad you hurt, and while sympathy says, I'm sorry you're hurting, and empathy says, I hurt with you, which is great. To find somebody who's empathetic can be a great thing. Compassion says, I will do everything in my power to stop your pain. I'll do everything I can to stop you from hurting. So the person who looks with compassion at that person might give that person a place to stay. They might give that person a job and add value and dignity to that person's life, may come alongside that person to make sure that everything that they've experienced, they will experience no more, that they are loved and valued and appreciated, and they're giving everything that they need to be cared for in this life. You know, the Bible talks about how Jesus, when he looked at the crowds, oftentimes the Bible describes the way that Jesus looked upon the people was with compassion. You know, we don't need any more people who pity our hurting children or vulnerable families that are growing up in our community. We also don't need people to feel sorry for them. And while it's admirable, we also don't need people necessarily to feel their pain. What we need are strong, convictional men and women, husbands, fathers, wives, and mothers, singles, young families, newly married couples, empty nesters, to join in this work, visiting children in distress and demonstrating compassion to the most vulnerable who are among us. And I pray that those people are on this call today, and those people exist here in our community. Let me pray for you. Father in heaven, we ask that you would bless our time together, ask that you would focus our attention to this great need that exists in our community. And Lord, we ask that we're coming alongside you in this work. And we know that this is something that is at your very heart. This is what is in your mind, because your word has told us that pure and undefiled religion is this: it is to visit orphans and widows in their distress. So we, God, want to inspire others to visit hurting people and the most vulnerable among us, to visit them in their pain, and to come alongside them and to help them and to lift them up and to help them to understand that there is, number one, a God in heaven who loves them. And there is a community here that believes in them and wants to inspire them to excellence. And so, God, because this is a work that is at the very heart of who you are, the center of who you are, we know and anticipate your blessing over us. But God, we also expect opposition. And we ask, God, that we would feel your presence as we engage in this work for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank
Jackie.
you, Ron. What a great way to truly start our morning. Okay. So out of curiosity, by a show of hands, a head nod, how many of you, if this is the first time of hearing about family support services? Okay, well, hopefully by the end of today's training, you will all be experts about family support services, or the acronym that we use is FSS. So at FSS, we truly believe in mission first. We are not an organization who just posts our mission on a wall to be in compliance. It's embedded in everything we do each and every single day. So what is our mission? What helps us guide us each and every single day when we come to work? It is to be the leader in providing safety, stability, and quality of life for all children by working with the community to strengthen the family unit. We can't have a mission without a vision. Our vision is that our children are connected to their own families, supported by families, embraced by the community. The children have the opportunity to achieve in Pinellas and Pasco counties. Organization and agencies recognize that children in protection is a community responsibility and represents the best interests of all county residents. Each morning, we have nearly 300 plus staff who clock in to work with the children and families in our communities. At FSS, we have 5 principles that guide our work with families that are highlighted on this screen. I want everyone to notice a key word in bold: we. At FSS, we know the work we do can't be done with an I. We rely working on together as a team with partnering agencies and community members. We all have a community responsibility for a better tomorrow. We must like the number 5 because we have 5 pillars that represent our agency's values: partnership, excellence, accountability, compassion, and equity. I've been with this agency for about 7 months, and I thought where I came from loved acronyms. Nope. Child welfare loves acronyms. I'm not going to give you a book of acronyms today, but I do want to share with you one you may hear often in the community, which is community-based care, or better known as CBC. CBC is a child welfare program managed by local lead agencies so that they can effectively provide the care each child needs based on their individual circumstances. Family Support Services is the lead agency in Pasco and Pinellas, but we have other community management organizations who operate under us, such as LSF, Lutheran Services of Florida, and YFA, and several others. If you're not noticing a trend, it takes a village to truly make an impact for the children in need within our community. So what is some of the things that Family Support Services does? Well, we work with the parents to resolve issues and overcome challenges. Some of our children need a safe and stable place to live. Our kinship fostering and family finding allows us to do so if needed. Our priority is kinship fostering. This allows the child to be in a safe and stable placement with someone the child knows, such as an aunt, uncle, grandma, or grandpa. Currently, we have 109 children in Pasco County, 203 children in Pinellas County who are under a level 1, which is our licensed foster relative care. In this photo, you will actually see a grandma and grandpa who became kinship foster parents to their grandson. I had to put this photo in because he was too cute not to with his little bow tie. Our level 2 is your traditional foster care, where we were unable to identify a relative member to take the child in. And in Pasco, we currently have 177 licensed families for foster care and 203 families who are licensed in Pinellas County. However, we have nearly 2,500 children in Pasco and Pinellas County in out-of-home care. So the need for quality foster parents exists, especially for our teen population. So what are some of the things that FSS is doing to help the need of finding quality foster parents? In the last 90 days of 2022, there were nearly 26 newly licensed foster homes for Pasco and Pinellas County to address those needs. FSS has begun to use the PRIDE curriculum training for foster and adoptive parents, training to better prepare them to support, to address the child trauma and be a healing resource for children who have experienced trauma. We've also hired a dedicated trainer who will work in partnership with licensing team to support and guide our current foster families. We've welcomed new contracted partners to recruit and support foster family homes and have launched a comprehensive recruitment campaign. We've also doubled our kinship team to ensure that we identify and support relative and non-relative current caregivers. As we are hard at work meeting the needs of the needs currently, we never lose sight of our number one goal, reunifying these children when they can be with their biological families. I also wanted to share this quote from one of our current foster parents. She says, "It's amazing how you can affect the trajectory of somebody's future just by stepping into that small gap." With our number one goal being reunification, we want to be one step ahead of the game before a child actually enters into the system of care. So in Circuit 6, on November 14th, we started our STEPS program here. STEPS stands for Strengthening Ties and Empowering Parents. This program serves youth who are deemed safe by child protective investigators and exhibit risk factors for future abuse or neglect. FSS has operated this program for nearly 15 years in Duval and Nassau counties and worked with local partners to understand the unique needs of Circuit 6 before implementing it here. STEP serves families for an average of 3 to 9 months and uses a strength-based approach to engaging with and empowering the families. STEPS uses the Strengthening Families Protective Factors frameworks as foundation to the program, which is research-informed approach to increase family strengths, enhance child development, and reduce the likelihood of child abuse and neglect. All STEPS family advocates also receive specific training in the active parenting curriculum and budgeting training to allow for in-home services delivery when families identify these needs. So with this program, in 2022, there were 28% less children removed from their homes in Circuit 6 than the year before. FSS actually became the lead agencies. And a highlight that I have to share is removal trends have downward each month so far. When a family is not in the best interest of the child and the courts may terminate parental rights, children become available for adoption, which usually is our ages 8 to 17. In 2022, more children exited the foster care system and entered it for the first time since 2014. And in currently, we have about prioritizing a push for 200 plus children with a goal of adoption. And we believe that this year we can expedite that finalization for them. And I truly believe a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is actually a picture of a little who was adopted this past December. And some of you might have caught the celebration of the adoption finalization that we had in partnership with the Tampa Bay Rays in the Enchanted that takes place in the month of December at Tropicana Field. We had 19 children in Pinellas County adopted in the month of December. So our workforce capacity, when we took over the contract for Circuit 6, we had a third party to come in to truly assess current pay scales, caseload, and a list of items we know our case managers do not have an easy job and truly the heart of our agency and the work that we do. When we took over, our case management team only had 25% of the positions filled. Today, we have nearly 85% of those positions filled. We also added critical positions to strengthen our department teams. We also made pay adjustments of base salary to almost 40% for our case management workers. I mentioned earlier that we seek quality foster parents. We also seek quality caring professionals. And we know this is not easy work that we do and should be compensated for such. Does anybody have any questions currently before we lead into our panel discussion? Okay. Well, now I am actually going to go ahead and I'm going to hand it over to the man with the $1 million voice, Octavius Davis, who will lead our panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Good morning, everyone. My name is Octavius Davis. I'm the Director of Community Engagement, Recruitment, and Grants for Family Support Services. I've had the humbling pleasure of being with the agency for 3 years now in this capacity, and I'm very grateful to be a part of the community that's working to continue building and improving our system of care there in the Suncoast area. So as Jacqueline mentioned, I have the humbling pleasure of introducing our panelists for today. So our first panelist will be, you've already heard from him earlier this morning, Mr. Ron Cooney. If you would please just briefly share once again with our guest a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Ron Cooney. I'm a pastor at Calvary Church in Clearwater and a former foster parent, and have adopted 2 out of the system. I have 4 children, and I'm on the board of FSS and A Door of Hope, which is a licensing agency here in the 6th Circuit.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Pastor Cooney. Next, we have Mr. Nate Johnson.
Hello there. Good morning. I'm Nathaniel Johnson. I go by Nate. I have a 9-year-old. I'm a former foster youth at a foster care system myself. I currently work for Ready for Life. We help former foster youth coming out of the foster care system. So I'm giving back in my own way to the young men and young women that are coming out of the system now. I've been with Ready for Life since the beginning that they have opened, which is about 12 years now. But I've been working with them for the last 2 years. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Our next panelist today, Ms. Falana Shannon.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Falana Shannon. I'm also a youth specialist at Ready for Life, and I also started off as a client for the past 12 years. I have been here this year. I always get confused. Yeah, close to 8 years. And I am also a youth specialist that works with the young women in foster care in the group homes. And myself and Nate, we both age out of the foster care system, and we advocate in the community to help young adults transition to adulthood. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to talking to everyone and meeting everybody.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Katie McElroy.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Katie McElroy. I'm the Licensing and Kinship Director with Family Support Services here in Circuit 6. I'm super excited to be here. I have been working in child welfare, specifically with foster families, for the past 15 years. Just really excited to be here and support this wonderful mission.
Outstanding. Thank you so much to each of our panelists. And I would like to remind all of our attendees today that throughout the process of this Q&A session, we welcome your questions. If you look at the very bottom of your screen, you should see a box that says Q&A with like the little bubble comment icons above it. If you have any questions throughout the course of this panel discussion, please, by all means, click that box, drop your question in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to it as soon as possible so that we can continue to have this discussion about the system of care. So what I want to do is kick things off this way. I always share with people that regardless of what agency we work with, when people hear about the system of care, they clump us all into the same pot. So the general public at large doesn't necessarily know how to delineate between family support services, Ready for Life, A Door of Hope. So what I would like for each of our panelists to do is share with us very briefly how your role impacts the system of care. And I won't call anybody out. I'll let our panelists choose to come off mute for themselves to answer that question.
I'll go ahead and start. And so my role in the system of care is to, like, I feel my calling is to wake up the church in the Tampa Bay area to the needs of this this crisis. So in the system of care, historically, I've been around for quite a while now. It's been about 10 years that I've been involved here in this area, in this work. And I've heard over the course of the last decade a lot of finger pointing and blame shifting, and so you know, I'm a listener, so I take time to listen to you know, the problem before I try to create or craft solutions in my mind. And so for several years, you know, I watched and listened to organizations point fingers at each other, people point fingers at each other, institutions point fingers at each other as to who was to blame for the problems that existed here. And so about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I decided that I was just going to point the finger at myself. I was just going to assume the responsibility on behalf of all Christians in this area that we're to blame because we have turned a blind eye to this need. And so over the last several years, I have tried to work to wake up my own church and the churches that are affiliated with us and that we're in partnership with in the Tampa Bay area to being a part of this work so that we're no longer turning a blind eye to something that I believe is at the very center of what God cares about and who he cares about.
I love that, Pastor Cooney. If I may, for a moment, quote the great Michael Jackson when he said, "I'm starting with the man in the mirror."
Change his ways.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for answering that call and moving forward to make a difference in the system of care. Would another panelist like to chime in on this?
I'll go ahead. Being that I guess you can call it a foster care advocate, I'll say. I was in care for over 10 years, and I was one of the kids that you would consider that had frequent transition. I was in over 12 different schools, over 40 foster homes. So I was a little bit of everywhere, to where at first, being young, I was in foster care very young. So I was definitely in adolescence, to where I acted on impulse, meaning like instead of, I thought the opposite. I thought if I misbehaved, ran away, fighting, getting into trouble, hanging around the wrong people, I thought that would get me removed from foster care or go home, until I got closer to aging out, understanding that it is a totally different world when you're an adult, and you do need those resources and you do need that support. What I also learned, aging out of the foster care system, was once I turned 18, I said, okay, like you guys said, you have to be the man in the mirror. I had to kind of self-reflect myself to kind of say, okay, well, I want to make a difference, but I want to make a difference in a good way. Turning 18, I honestly didn't think being in the position that I am now, because around that age bracket, and anybody will tell you, when you're in foster care, it's something that you want to hide because you're ashamed and you're embarrassed, and your walk of life is not, the picket fence, two parents in a home, living the American dream per se. So being in this position, I learned that I would honestly say that it was I'm trying to think of the word that I'm looking for to make it to where everybody will understand it. I advocate off of my, story and my testimony, but also the young adults that we serve, because you have different walks of life. You have chronic homelessness. You have, single expectant mothers. You have single fathers. Like Nate, he does our wingman group for single fathers and single, males that, aren't necessarily prepared. We know sometimes the foster kids try to act like we know everything and we got it all figured out, but we want the advice, we want the help. And now being, older, I feel like foster care in a way kind of saved my life from a lot of different things, especially being a human traffic advocate, a domestic violence advocate. I feel like now myself and people like Nate and, the people on the panel, we can go out, in the community and save these kids, that are experiencing these walks of life. They may not want to hear it. They might, give us all a hard time, but I feel like if they hear voices of reasons from all of us and people that have had experiences, that is what makes a difference. So I just thought I'd share that.
Fulana, so many amazing nuggets that you just dropped. I want to circle back to it in a moment with one of the things that you said in particular, but I want to go back to the other panel that may want to chime in on this particular topic.
Okay.
Hi there. So I just want to talk a little bit about my role. Obviously, I'd mentioned I'm the Director of Licensing and Kinship. So I think the biggest thing for me and the impact that I can have is just supporting our families and the job they do every day. Between kinship and then our traditional and even therapeutic homes, it's really important to be able to support, educate, and guide our parents so that they can be able to provide the best care possible, as well as connecting them to so many needed services, not just for themselves to support the children, but also for the children. But at the same time, making sure we stay in compliance with rules. Obviously, we always have those when it comes to our foster homes. So, but the biggest impact, I think, is being able to support our families who are there, boots on the ground, running, caring for our children.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Katie. And Nate, you're the last man standing. Would you like to chime in on this discussion as well?
I think Fulana said it best, but yeah, I love that I'm able to come out of the foster care system myself and been through all that. I had a different experience than what Fulana went through herself, but for me, the foster care system made me the man that I am, because they made me get a job and save money and learn little life skills here and there, and then I also picked up a lot more when I got involved with Ready for Life. But me coming back now is full circle for me, because now I'm trying to give back to the ones that are coming out of the system now with my advice. Whether they take it or not is up to them, but I'll still be here to keep giving that same advice to them. So that way, it hopefully drills it in their head that, hey, you need this so you can do this, But it's up to them at the end of the day to take our advice and our support that we have from here at Ready for Life, as well as you guys there, so thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, we have so many amazing partners that we work with in the Suncoast area. Pastor Cooney, I heard you mention earlier the crisis that we're dealing with as it relates to the system of care. And so in our line of work, we don't have the luxury of avoiding reality, because the kids that we serve, the families that we serve, they are faced with reality every single day. And so what I'd like to do for this next topic of discussion is address the elephant in the room. So Falana, I want to go back to a comment that you made mention of, stating that as a teenager, you thought that if you acted out a certain way, that would speed up the process to allow you to get back home. And one of the misconceptions that I hear from people in terms of their reasoning for not wanting to foster is because they feel that some kids in care are going to come with baggage of bad behaviors and so forth. And so Falana, I want to come to you first, because you spoke on it, but if you could please drill down on that a little more. What was behind you acting out? What was the motivator behind those type of behaviors that you were acting out on?
Yes, sir. So basically it was 6 siblings. I came from a family of 6 siblings, and upon removal, we were immediately separated once we were placed into care. And I'm going to be completely honest, I felt alone, to where I was around, I looked at it like I was around a bunch of strangers that I had no idea who they were. I didn't know if I was like kidnapped. I was thinking a series of a lot of different things, because I was used to, my mom being a single parent, taking care of me and my siblings. So to be, exposed to an environment or just different scenarios that I had no idea of, my wall immediately went up at a young age. I was 8 years old. So I felt as if like, okay, I have to protect myself because it's just me. I have no one to help me. I have no one to protect me. I don't have anyone to save me. So I went into defense mode, but I really personally did not mean to be, defensive or guarded or so angry or so hurt or so and it was actually masking a lot of pain, because I had hope that I would, eventually go back home, or I had hope that I would have the dream adoptive parent. I had a failed adoption due to, my behaviors and the foster parent not being ready, or, finally being in that particular foster home and feeling comfortable, like, okay, this is where I'm going to be when I turn 18. And then finding out 3 months later, I have to go to a group home, and then being at that group home for 2 years and then being removed from there. So it was like, I was never comfortable, with transition. So it, caused me to react, in a way of protection, even though I personally didn't mean that, but I would never tell them that. But again, once I became older, I was able to come clean with that, to share it. But it was just a coping mechanism into, go into a shell of protection, if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Any other panelists want to speak to some of the misconceptions that comes along with what potentially prevents people from wanting to foster?
Well, something I often hear is that it's hard, and I just put my hands up and go, yeah, of course it's hard. Do you not think these children are facing difficult circumstances, which is why they're in the situation that they need to be in a safe, loving home until their parents can learn the tools that they need in order to receive their children again, or we can find family that can take them in, or in a worst case scenario, a child needs to be adopted to achieve permanency. of course, the work is hard, and there's evil in the world. There's destruction. There's drug addiction. There are things that plague us as humans, and that is no fault of the child. And so the work is difficult, and we know that anything worth doing is going to be difficult. So that's oftentimes something that I will hear. And instead of trying to explain it away and saying that it's not that bad, no, it is. It's hard, but it's worth it.
Thank you so much for your transparency, Pastor Cooney. And actually, Pastor Cooney, I'm going to pause for a moment and come back to you with a question. We have a question here by one of our attendees. Marlena, thank you so much. If a ministry wants to get into partnership or volunteer, what is the process they would have to follow? Now, Marlena, there is going to be another portion today that's going to talk specifically about Care Portal and how the faith-based community can really latch on and get involved in the system of care. But Pastor Cooney, how did your ministry get involved with the system of care, and what would you share with Marlena?
That's such a great question, and I'm so glad Brian is on the call, because he'll be able to speak very practically to how people can get involved. Listen, there are different levels of involvement. We often tell families that not everybody is in a position to take a child into their home to do foster care and to be a foster parent and family. And that is understandable, right? But that doesn't mean that there are not creative ways that you can support foster families. What we found is that a lot of times foster families will not continue beyond 12 months because of how difficult the work is, but also because they don't feel supported. So those that get the support that they need from their church or from a ministry are likely to continue beyond that 12 months. I think one study showed that it was that they're 90% more likely. So when you think about the how to be involved, one way is to take a child into your home, but you can become a guardian ad litem. You can start care teams. We started care teams at our church to support our foster families. I know Man Up and Go, who is one of our mission partners, is highly involved in supporting foster families in the Tampa Bay area. And they work with FSS to find those families that maybe lack any kind of support structure around them. So there are varying degrees of involvement. But what I would just encourage you to do is begin talking to people at your church or your organization about, hey, this is a problem. I'm feeling like God is stirring me to get involved. I wonder, what God may be doing in your life. Maybe you want to be involved as well. And let's find out ways that we can come together. But I would just say, begin the conversation and then start thinking creatively about, where you can get involved in this work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer that, Pastor Cooney. Katie, what would you say is one of the biggest needs right now in the system of care?
Oh, goodness, we do have so many, but I'd say certainly the need for our teen population homes as well as sibling groups. A lot of times we get sibling groups in that are of varying ages. And so a lot of our families maybe prefer to care for younger or older. So I think having a larger profile and the ability to take in a sibling group to keep them together is so needed right now, because that's one of our goals that we strive for, is to keep kids together with their siblings. We know that sibling bond is huge. So we definitely have a need for those sibling homes as well as our teen population.
Absolutely. And, for some who may be watching right now as an attendee, we recognize that becoming a foster parent is a life-changing, life-altering experience. And one of the things that Jacqueline and I share with our foster parent recruiters all the time is, maybe asking someone when you first meet them, hey, would you like to become a foster parent? Maybe that's a little too aggressive. That's like the equivalent of asking someone to marry you on the very first date. The likelihood of you having success is going to be very low. However, there are so many ways to get involved in the system of care, either volunteering. I know that during the holiday season, especially, we have a holiday Christmas drive where we always need volunteers to help us just with the, additional hands to move the toys from point A to point B to get things set up. or maybe you really enjoy providing healthy, hearty meals for families. There are some foster parents who would love someone to be able to take that responsibility off their hands, even if for one night, just by providing them a meal. So as Pastor Cooney mentioned, there are so many different ways to get involved in the system of care and help out, other than simply having to go to the front of the line to become a foster parent. You can be a supportive cheerleader to our families in care as well in these other veins. So Nate, I want to come to you for a moment. We had an opportunity to hear about Falana's experience in the system of care. Would you mind sharing with us what your experience was?
For me, I went into foster care at about 13. I was obviously in and out of care when I was younger, but I officially went back in when I was 13, and I aged out at 18. So when I first went into care, it was just night-to-night placement at just whatever, at any foster home that they could find me for that night, and I would go to a day place during the daytime. And I eventually went to Ocala, which was a boys youth ranch up there. So I was in a boys cottage with like 15 to 20 other guys in there. So I was sharing a room with about 4 people in a room. And that's where I grew up for the last year and a half. And then I moved down to a TLP, which was a transitional living program. So me, I was in group homes more so than foster homes. But the group home that I was in when I aged out was it was transitioning me into adulthood. So that was really beneficial. So if we could have more of those, even like rather than just having foster homes, if we could have more transitional living programs where they live there, learn life skills, maybe cooking skills, cleaning skills, all that stuff to come out at 18 a little bit better than when they came into care, So that was my experience with it. And I felt like it was really good because that group home made me get up to go get a job at 16, and they made us save money every check that we got so we can have that money to have when we got eight out of 18. So having more of those programs, those foster homes, those group homes would be beneficial for a lot of ones that are in care now coming out at 18. So if we can have more of those, I see a lot more better candidates coming out of care.
This next question is for everyone who's on the panel. Share with us, from your perspective and experience, one thing that everyone needs to understand about the system of care. From your perspective and experience, what is one thing that everyone needs to understand about the system of care?
That these kids have gone through a traumatic experience being taken from their family, so they need that loving support from either the staff member or that foster family. That's my experience.
I would say the word I would use for it is patience. And I think it's patience not just for the foster children or child, patience for the foster parent as well, because this is a new, adjustment for their lives as well. So I believe patience on both parties, if that makes sense. So that way the relationship can blossom. We know that things kind of take time. So I definitely would say that, because it's not easy being a foster parent, but it's also not easy being a foster child as well. So I think if both parties took the actual patience, it would kind of be a better understanding with things.
Well, Falana, that is a t-shirt quote. It's not easy being a foster parent, but it is not easy being a foster child. Wow.
It's not.
Wow, that's paradigm shifting. Excellent point.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else that want to comment on that before I go to one of the questions in the box? From your perspective and experience, what's one thing people need to understand about the system of care?
I would just add that along the lines of patience, that we're all working together to achieve the same thing. And oftentimes we end up fighting each other. So a foster parent doesn't get response from case management. Case management is stressed because they're overextended. That if we did exercise, as Falana mentioned, just patience with each other to understand that all of us are a part of this work, including the foster child, to help them achieve permanency, to be reunited with their families, that it would go a long way. But oftentimes we can see it from our corner, and then that causes issues, and it starts a little bit of infighting that doesn't do the child any good.
Absolutely. And Katie, I saw you came off mute a moment ago.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of echo what both Falana and Ron said. And obviously, you know, you've got people to support you. So please, you know, never feel like you're alone. There's always somebody there to help you. I'll speak from the licensing point of view is each family has a licensing specialist to utilize for support. That's your person. So I definitely would say, you know, communication and reaching out when you need anything.
Excellent. So I want to go now to a question that we have from one of our attendees. And Katie, I'm going to come right back to you if you don't mind answering this question. What are the steps that you take to make sure whoever is fostering children are safe people? I'll ask that question again. What are the steps that you take to make sure whoever is fostering children are people that are safe?
Thank you. Yeah, we have a pretty extensive process when someone is wanting to become a foster parent. It consists of background screenings, level 2, also driving records, references, coming to your home, doing a home inspection, interviews, assessments, going through about an 8-week class of just learning about the system and the children in the system. So we take all the steps we can to ensure safety for everyone, not only our foster children, but our foster families. So, you know, we follow guidelines, we follow statutes, and you know, we do our best to ensure that we, you know, screen and filter through folks to find the best quality parents that we can.
Now, something I heard you mention, Katie, you said we do our best to screen to find quality parents. There was a second part of that question where the person went on to share from their personal experience. They adopted a young man, and a foster family emotionally abused that young man. So in a situation like that, as we're going through the screening process, are there any mechanisms in place to try to identify different things like that to determine if someone is going to be a good fit for a placement?
Sorry, my mute button. I mean, through a series of interviews and talking with folks that know those families is our process. I mean, I would say the biggest thing is especially those backgrounds, and then a continued monitoring of the home. I know licensing visits our homes frequently and often will conduct interviews with foster children and then also community partners to ensure that foster parents are doing what they need to do to provide for that child, not only physically, but emotionally. So, you know, in each year, we go through a series of references about the children in the previous year.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Katie. Well, we are running short on time. So as we prepare to wrap up this panel discussion, I want to thank each and every one of our panelists for participating today. So before we close out the Q&A portion, I just want to go back to our panelists. Are there any closing remarks that you'd like to share with our attendees today? Pastor Ron, let's start with you. I'm sorry, Pastor Cooney, let's start with you.
Pastor Ron is fine. I've been called worse. It's good. No, I would encourage you to pray seriously about your involvement and what that could look like. And the time is not later. The time is now. And it's not them. It's not, you know, they are going to do this work or this is what they are doing. You need to change that to this is what I am doing. This is what we are doing. So become part of the work at some level. And as you jump in, maybe you'll want to get more and more involved. And so just get your feet wet and find ways that you can volunteer and support these children and the system of care in this area.
Nate.
So My thing is that just yeah, being able to give back is my thing. Like, cause I'm glad that I was able to come full circle and be where I'm at now. I didn't see myself being in this field where I'm at, but it's definitely where I'm meant to be. And I get all the time that, Nate, you're doing a great job. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're making these guys' lives better. Even if they don't, even if I don't believe it sometimes or see it sometimes, I get told all the time that, yeah, I'm doing a good job. That I just keep doing what I'm doing, and eventually it'll show. And just by doing the work, I'm going to continue to make lives better. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir, for sharing. Katie.
Yes, so I would say that fostering is definitely the hardest job that you'll ever love. There is so much that can come from that, watching children thrive and flourish and be able to go back to their home and strengthening that family unit. That's what we're here for, to build our families back up and strengthen their unit. So
Beautiful. And Falana.
I just wanted to say thanks to the foster parents, thanks to the case managers, thanks to the people that are licensing, because if you pay attention, even the foster kids, if you pay attention, we all are like we're unified. And as crazy as that sounds, we all find this way to come together in the end. And the key goal is making sure the foster child is safe. We know that it's not easy, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my other foster brothers and sisters, that we know that it's not easy. We know that sometimes we make you guys want to just throw in the towel, but again, just hold on, have faith, and eventually the greater reward is in the end. I honestly will say that I got to piggy off what Nate said. Me being 31 years old, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, it's not a job that I'm doing. I'm literally changing lives by sharing my experience of being in foster care. And that's the greatest reward I think that I can receive, because I was an adolescent and now I did a 360. And so like our future goal now is just making a difference, in the community and helping these young adults, especially when they turn 18, like, not to put myself and Nate on the spot, for us to have been in foster care, to advocating, to now focusing on stability when you turn 18. We literally stepped out on faith and applied for a Habitat for Humanity, just as us being guinea pigs, me and Nate. And now we're going to be first-time homeowners this year. And our goal after that is going to be, okay, well, how are we going to get our young adults that are 18 and 19 to be inspired by us to do the next thing? So me and Nate, we got work to do, but I think it's going to be amazing. And myself and Nate and everyone, we really appreciate you guys giving us this opportunity.
Wow. Well, I think, Falana, once again, I think you stole the show with that closing story. So thank you so
thanks,
much.
Falana.
You're welcome, brother.
Next time is so enthused. Thanks, Falana.
Thank you.
But thank you so much to each of our panelists. Thank you so much to JWB. Greatly appreciate this opportunity. Jacqueline, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yes, thank you again, Octavius and the panel. I will actually now be going to turn it over to Brian and Kristen from Florida 127. They're going to share information about Care Portal and many ways that you can get involved.
So good morning, all. I am Brian Strausser. Also joining me is Kristen Lassiter. We're with Florida 127. And wow, I'm just wondering, why couldn't we go first? Because that panel was really hard to come on the toes of,
yeah.
Nate, Falana, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing your story. So much in our society these days, people look at where we're at right now. And when we pause and look at someone's success, but when we look at that in the light of their journey, I'm just amazed by the two of you. So thank you. I know that there may have been a time in your challenging journey that you might have felt alone. When I'm looking at these, the panelists and the attendee numbers here joined with us today across St. Pete, at their desktops, at their phones, all throughout maybe their businesses or homes, right now there's people on here that are demonstrating that, you know, kiddos in your similar journey are not alone. And that's really what today is really exciting. So thank you, FSS, for the opportunity to share about Care Portal. We can go to the next slide. Kind of will get you up and running here. Give you a introduction. What is Care Portal? Well, first and foremost, I'll explain a little bit about our organization, Florida 127. Pastor Cooney, Ron Cooney. Pastor Ron shared just about how his church connects into the child welfare system. And they do it in a lot of different ways. Florida 127, we're an organization that comes behind churches like Pastor Ron's and gives tools, gives resources, gives motivation, gives coaching, consulting, you name it. We're what we consider to be a bridge organization where we will support any church, give them best practices, training to go out and connect and serve into the child welfare system. I got into this over 18 years ago when my wife felt the call for foster care, and through some prayer and opportunities, I felt the call too. So we went into it together, and we were a foster home in Tampa 18 years ago for about 7-8 years straight. Took in some kids here and there, came and left. But through that journey, we ended up adopting 4 children. So I have just blessed to be a father of 6 children now. And through our experience, we learned firsthand that so many churches want to care. Well, they do care. You know, they're at that pity or sympathy area that Pastor Ron talked about, but they didn't know what to do next. Even to a point of frustration as a member of a church that, actively said, yeah, go out and be a foster home. So we did that. And when things became challenging, things threw us curveballs that we didn't expect, the reality was our church didn't know how to support us. All they knew was say, hey, go do it. And that's where our frustration came in. And that was the heart of Florida 127, why we birthed this organization. My wife and I left our paid jobs about 8 years ago and launched Florida 127. And we've been partnering with agencies and churches in the Bay Area since then. Just blessed to have the growth. We have 9 employees on our staff that are every day going out and engaging our churches. And now we're engaging our communities around our church to support, kiddos such as Falana and Nate and the families that have come around them to serve. So that's who Florida 127 is, and that's why we do it. And we really, we're behind the scenes. We want to be a catalyst. We want to elevate each church to do what they do and to do it well. We want the churches to do it under their name because that's where their tools and their resources and their flavor is. Some of the great things that Pastor Ron's church does is a result of us giving them tools and resources. And so people that are working in alongside of his church, they don't know about Florida 127. And that's by design because we want the glory, the knowledge, the focus to be in every church to deliver what does best for them.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about one of our tools, which is called Care Portal. And I love explaining this because every time I do, everyone says, wow, I wish I would have thought of that because I'm that guy too. This is a national platform. This is a platform that's currently in about 22 states now across the United States. The way it works is pretty simple. Every day, there's a child or there's a family in need who have children. And through one way or another, they're visited by an agency worker. And that agency worker could.
Every year, more than 4 million children teeter on the brink of entering foster care. And more than 400,000 are in foster care, most of them for preventable reasons. The foster care system impacts more than you can imagine. 50% of the homeless, 60% of girls and women rescued from sex trafficking raids, and 75% of those incarcerated spent time in foster care. The foster care system is ground zero, the place where our efforts will have the absolute greatest impact on our communities. And here is the good news. So many of you care about these issues. Churches and agencies and businesses, community leaders, all want to help. What we're missing is connection. The chance to collaborate and put our networks and resources together. Care Portal uses technology to make real-time care connections for kids and families in crisis. This platform helps us make the most vulnerable children our priority, which makes them the single most powerful source for uniting and healing our communities as we serve together. Here's how it works. Caseworkers with child-serving agencies encounter needs of children in crisis every day. They enter vetted needs into Care Portal, which immediately makes local churches and community members who've joined the network aware, giving them a real-time opportunity to respond. This platform is designed to equip the local church to be at the point of care for these children and families in need. And it allows for the entire community to work together on any request. So whether it's one church that responds or a community of churches and businesses and individuals working together, Care Portal makes vital connections possible through an easy-to-use platform at your fingertips.
So many of our children and families in child welfare are isolated. They don't have a support system. Care Portal can provide not only the physical needs for the children and family, but can also provide a support system and relationships.
I look at the Care Portal as a platform for us to be able to do ministry across denomination lines, across racial lines, across social economic lines, and the mission field is in our backyard.
Sometimes, connection means meeting one need at just the right moment. At other times, connection starts life-changing relationships. When you join Care Portal, you are saying yes to connections that change lives, transform communities, and can reverse the foster care crisis in our nation. That yes makes children the priority, because every child matters, and what you do matters. Children have the power to change us.
All right. So thank you for the technology behind the scenes, making that work. It really helps. You know, every child matters. And not only that, children have the power to change us. And as we walk in alongside of these children and these families, you know, that's the hidden part that happens. When we enter in, we gain as well. So to give you an overview, and I did see there's a question that came in, how do community service providers become involved with Care Portal? We'll get to that. I'll explain how we kind of manage our supply and demand, and then there'll be a call to action basically for our potential church partners out there too. So I'll explain that. So if you'll bear with me, I'll give kind of the overall nuts and bolts, and it'll make more sense when we get to that part. So, you know, national impact. Again, Florida 127, one of the things we really focus on is our business model. We find proven solutions that are not being utilized in the Tampa Bay area, and we partner with those solutions and bring them to Tampa Bay. So that way we can have success by standing on the shoulders of giants instead of us having to recreate a new wheel when one's already been worked on, improved, and have growth. So all of our programs we bring in, they're vetted and proven. So we have immediate impact within our own community. Impact across the United States. Care Portal launched about 6 years ago. It's run by the Global Orphan Project, which is a nonprofit organization based out of Kansas City, Missouri. And obviously they're very happy this week with the Super Bowl win. And they have launched this platform. And as you can see, those orange states are the ones that are actively using Care Portal. To date, or actually as of February 7th, when we prepared this presentation, 177,000 kiddos have been met and served through a connection by Care Portal. And when that service happens, there's a tangible thing that happens. There's a relationship that's met. There's an economic impact because the challenges our children have impacts all of us, and it costs our communities money as well. So that work alone has brought in more than a $60 million impact. So this is a proven model, and we're excited to be the ones to bring it into Florida, and Florida has been growing quite a bit. So if we can go to the next screen, I'll show you what we've been doing in Florida. And as we get to the next screen on Florida, I'll share that Florida has been embraced by our governor's office through the faith-based community initiative that our governor's office has. It's been a focus. And in fact, we launched, Florida 127 launched Florida and Hillsborough County alone 2.5 years ago. That was the first Care Portal work to be done in the Tampa Bay area. Just prior to that, Haines City was doing a couple small Care Portal requests. So we launched 2.5 years ago in and through COVID in Hillsborough County, and we've been growing ever since then. Our numbers in Hillsborough County are about 2,000 kiddos served. The good news is within the last 2 years, the governor's office has stepped in, and DCF has gotten a contract to pay for some of the technology fees. So that gives access to a lot more partners now. So in the work over the last 2 years, as you can see, we're focused, different partners are focusing on Care Portal across the board. So as of February 7th, almost 10,000 kiddos have been served. I bet you if we looked at the numbers this morning, we might be there. And that brings an impact of 3 million, more than 3 million of an impact just in serving kids alone. So if we can go to the next screen. The way the model works is like this. Care Portal is a connection point. It doesn't do the work. It basically engages many different individuals to first and foremost, to make them aware of an opportunity to serve. I think one of the first questions we had this morning was, how can I get involved, right? That's always the wonder. Care Portal has really allowed us to share the needs in real time. So we want to tell you really what our strategy is, and you'll see how it really aligns with what FSS went over in the beginning, which is why we partner with them. So in the very middle there, you see our little guy, the child. His name is Stanley. He represents every child out there who needs some support. That's our why. Every Care Portal request that comes in is focused on a child. But the way we want to support this child is we want to support that family, which is the first orange ring who comes around that child. We're going to support that family. Now that family can be different. It's the caregivers. It could be the biological family who have had the children. It could be the kinship family. That's a great aunt, an uncle, a grandmother, a great grandmother. That's someone who has a relationship with that child, but for whatever reason, the child was removed from the primary family because it wasn't safe, that family needed some help. So those are the kinship caregivers that step up. Could be a foster family, could be an adoptive family. You could be a family that's reunified. The children were removed, but they've worked their case plan and got them back. So we want opportunities to support all families within those capacities. And what we do is Care Portal engages the church. That's the first grade ring that you see. Church, that's individual responders who connect with and help strengthen the family. And the value there is that our connections through Care Portal will connect the family into the church, but the local church owns the ministry. We train, we support, we equip the local church, but it's up to that local church to use their resources, their connections, their desire, their people that in the pews to get them outside of the community and to serve as they're called to do. And when we see that local ownership, that's when we see the amazing growth, because it not only gives more opportunities to serve, but it actually creates our volunteers as better disciples. And that's how the growth continues to happen. So we've got the family, walk with me there. We've got the child in the center. We've got the family that surrounds that child. And again, that could be a temporary family, foster family, kinship, adoptive family. It could be the primary family caregivers. We're going to help support that family by supporting them with the church. But we don't stop there. And that's kind of the really neat thing about Care Portal is we then can connect the community to help support the church. Now, the community, that could be any individual that sees a need online and wants to help fund a need. That may be a company that has a heart to give back. We have several companies that are community champions that fund needs on an ongoing basis. The money gets transferred then into the church and helps the church go out and meet and relationally serve those families. We have partnerships. We even have a partnership with the university through a sports program where their boosters have donated money every year that goes into the Care Portal for real-time needs that gets distributed. Kiwanis clubs, any other type of group or organization out there can connect through Care Portal to then get partnered with the church to help the family, to help that child. And why do we do it with so many layers? Well, a couple of reasons why. One is, child welfare is a very complex problem. There's a lot of layers to uncover to really help. So we need a complex solution to help meet those complex problems. We need multiple layers to help come in and provide support. The other thing is, it was mentioned, the system of care can be confusing. Different players, different entities. So it's hard to know at what point do you enter and where do you help. So that's why Care Portal can put all those avenues together and compartmentalize it and communicate at the right time. And then the lower left, you'll see from, God's wisdom tells us that a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And that's how the Care Portal structure comes into play. So if you could go to the next slide. And Kristen is here. Her task is to jump in if I miss something or if I mess up. So far, so good?
So far, so good. Yes, we actually have a couple questions in the chat, but I think you just spoke about some community service organizations and the opportunities. Carlos mentioned a question about that. And so I'm really glad that you spoke about that, because there are opportunities for community service organizations, and we do partner with community service organizations to help fund the needs. And I know that you're going to talk more about what that looks like and what are the most common needs and stuff. So by all means, keep going.
Fantastic. Thank you. So really, Care Portal is a way that we can help start by meeting some physical, tangible needs. And we'll talk about what those specifically are in a second. But ultimately, we start with those physical, tangible needs, but it often opens up opportunities for relational support. What Care Portal can do is unleash the church, the opportunity to be the church, to help connect struggling families within their community that the church did not know about before. But when they're given an opportunity to help meet a tangible needs, providing a physical item that will help stabilize the environment of the children and the caregivers. And then when we do it in partnership with our agency partners, a lot can happen. And we see time after time that meeting a need allows a relation to develop with a church member, with a church staff, or a church as a whole, new relational opportunities, healthy relationals with individuals that didn't have that capacity before. So a lot of the stuff that we measure through Care Portals is a lot about physical, tangible needs, but over and over, we get great stories of how we came in and made relational opportunities to support and to really change lives forever with new opportunities. So let's go to the next slide. And we'll talk about what are the most requested items. So these are the most requested items that we see. and not just in the Tampa Bay area, but across the country. So many times we have families that need some additional help so that they don't fall apart. Or these are things that they need in order to facilitate a temporary placement. For example, a great aunt gets a call at the middle of the night, finds out that their nephew's children are being removed and placed into foster care unless she can step up and take the children in the morning. And that happens so many times. And that's the right thing to do because we want to preserve connections with these children and their families with the hope that it's a temporary placement and that great aunt can help facilitate the reunification. But the reality is that the great aunt wasn't expecting that. So now she needs a bed, a crib, car seats, and maybe some school uniforms for these kiddos, right? So now with Care Portal, that caseworker can enter that need and go out to multiple partners that can help hopefully facilitate and meet these needs. But not only that, as they're meeting these needs, they can look around and ask for, how else can we help? How else can we go back to our small group and share about this family in need? How can we engage more individuals within our church to help these families? One example comes to mind. We just had not too long ago, a young mom of 2 children with her spouse found herself in a domestic violence situation first time. And it was pretty dangerous, and she made the right choice and took her children and got to an apartment, her own apartment. She has a job. She paid the utilities, the deposit, everything to get that apartment. But because of the threatening issue, she had to leave without getting her items. So she needed a bed, she needed a crib, and the child protection investigator told her, was in her apartment and said, you've got to have a bed and a crib by next Friday, or else we have to remove the children. So a caseworker working alongside of that young mom said, we can do this. So we put those items in Care Portal. Within the next day, a couple within a church said, hey, we've got that crib in the garage. We can go out and buy the bed. They connected, they made a plan, and they met with this mom, and they brought the items to her. And then they looked around and said, well, what else do you need? Well, we need some diapers, we need some this and that. And so then they started, they prayed for her and they invited her to church. They went out and they talked about it to their small group. The small group came back and brought some more things. So now this young mom in a crisis situation has a whole new team of volunteers and individuals that care for her and care for her children during this time of crisis. And it's something that we are working alongside of the system of care, not in addition to or instead of, but we're all working with the same goal. Well, next slide. And we do have I'll answer another question that came in. Is it only churches? We also have temples and mosques that are all part of our audience. Absolutely. So that's part of that community. The churches are the focus point, but any other entity out there can get connected and work along in partnership with the church. So we would love to have a mosque. We would love to have a synagogue. We would love to have any entity out there, and they can get access to it in the right capacity and connect and do this work alongside of us. So that was the question that came in. The other thing that's unique about Care Portal is that it really helps identify the language that our caseworkers are so used to. If you work in child welfare or you work alongside, or if you've been a recipient of, you know that there's lots of acronyms and abbreviations and jargon that most people don't understand. So Care Portal is about engaging, we consider, your average person that wants to help but is not an expert in child welfare. So Care Portal identifies specific purpose statements that the caseworker, when they enter a request, they select these statements. So it's an easy way to identify, first and foremost, what's the situation? What's the purpose? Why does this family need these items? So these are quick ways that can help communicate. So that way, anyone who reviews a request will be told up front what the goal, what the purpose is. Because so many times when we engage volunteers can be only as effective as they know what the game plan is. So these are great ways that the caseworker will select. So every request that comes through will be identified as one of these opportunities. And some of the most common ones are, help preserve a foster care or kinship placement, or help make a foster care or kinship placement, or better yet, help reunify a bio family, or help strengthen a bio family. So it's just a great quick way for our caseworker to communicate in ways that everyone can see and understand.
And can I just chime in real quick? One of the things I love about this slide and this piece to the platform is that when we remember that these stories, these needs, these requests are going out to volunteers. And so everyone is different, and all the volunteers have different backgrounds and different, pieces to their life. We're personally kinship care providers. And so if I were to see a request that might be related to helping preserve a kinship placement, that might tug at my heart. Another volunteer might see something like our two panelists today. They might see a request and about helping to support a youth that's aging out, and that might really tug at their heart. And so I love these purpose statements because every request shows what the purpose is, and it may hit a different volunteer differently. So I think that's what's important, is that we're an army of volunteers. There's not just one person sitting behind a desk, looking at all of these. It is everyone who has decided to jump into the game, like Pastor Ron said, and get involved and do one thing, do their part, do their piece. And so these purpose statements help connect people to the reason that we're, purposing this particular request.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So this is what a request, this is a real request, just to give you an idea. The caseworker would have entered in a story. Basically, we ask our caseworkers just to give us a brief story about our family, what they need, and why they need it, and what will happen if this need is met. Now, the important part to understand is when a caseworker enters a request, they do not give private information. One thing very unique and important about child welfare is it's private. These are children. Their story is still being written. Their challenges are hopefully temporary, and we want to get them to permanency. So it's not ours to share. Our story is not ours to share. It's their story. So we need to keep it private. So when a caseworker submits a request, they do not put online the address or the location, the contact information. They're just going to give us a generic description, what the specifics are. And the only identifying thing would be a zip code location. So you can tell it'll be sent to your system whether it's in your area or not. So that way it shares that need without giving that vulnerable information. So now when this is the snapshot, what you would see, you can go online now to careportal.org. You can, if you are part of a church that participates in Care Portal, you can get access. You get an email request and you click on the link, it brings you to the website. Every need you can see whether it's been met or not. This one, as you can see, there's a check mark. It says, hey, these needs were met in full. And so you can scroll on to the next one. The value here is gives you the opportunity to meet a real-time need, a real need in real time. So you can see which ones are met, which ones are not. If you can help, you click on the yes button, and then the system will connect you together. So there's a couple different things. So let's go on to the next slide, please. If I were to scroll down in this request, I can also see not only are what I can do, but we can also see what other churches are involved with Care Portal, what other network churches, and how we might be able to partner together. Sometimes we get big requests in for rent, $3,000 for past due rent. I've seen some large items, $5,000 for a car. And we have seen when you can actually now partner with other organizations and churches, maybe you can do part of it, but you can actually meet a partial need, but then you have an opportunity to collaborate together to meet the needs in whole. So that'll help. The whole network will show who's active and who can help with that. So let's go on to the next slide, please. And once you click on the button and say, yes, I can meet a need, then that's what happens. That's how we maintain privacy. An email gets generated to our volunteer that wants to help, the church partnership in there. And then also an email gets sent to the caseworker that entered the need. And what it does is it connects, that's where that handshake happens. It's going to share the volunteer's information that said, yes, I can meet this need. It's going to give their email address and their phone number. And then the volunteer automatically gets a email showing to them the caseworker's address and email and our caseworker's phone number and email. And at that point, the expectation is that the caseworker talks directly with that volunteer to set forth any parameters. What's the best way to contact a family? Any issues that we should be aware of? How can they best meet that need? As well as, in that way, our volunteer can be best prepared to meet that need appropriately and in a way that's in accordance with that caseworker. Also, the system has the opportunity, some of our agencies require a waiver from the family before they submit the request. And that's easy to do. We work with FSS, the current agents, the current partners that have access with FSS, they have that in their process. They share with the family, hey, we have a network of churches that might be able to help. Can they meet that need? Can we share your story and your zip code? And if someone says, yes, I can meet that need, then we will share your specific information. So they have a waiver process that takes care of that. So go into the next screen, please. And church and community websites. So part of Care Portal is any organization that wants to join and get access and meeting needs. Could be a church, could be a community partner, such as a synagogue, a mosque. It could be a business, it could be an organization, a club. They can all get access through their own team. And then when they do, they actually get a website portal that puts their logo there. They upload their logo, gets their name, who their ministry contact is. And most of our partners put this as a link on their website, or they even embed it into their website. So it shows that Care Portal is just a part of their tools, the ways that they serve. So anyone connected to this organization, for example, this is Grace Family Church. A lot of their members are looking at their website. They can see that these are real-time needs, and they can scroll through and see all of the needs that are currently open in their area. And they can even look at specific needs based on a zip code. They can search it for maybe even specific items. Maybe someone has a dresser that they want to give away. They can go in and do a search on dresser, and it'll pull which needs are currently active. So it's just a really great way to share not only what each organization is doing, but really to connect their constituents into opportunities to serve.
I'll also chime in here too. We have some churches who have created groups within their church, like a bed ministry, and they have a group of volunteers that get together once a quarter and assemble beds and make beds. And they keep them, they happen to have a space where they keep these beds. And then when the requests come in, they have the opportunity to then just meet that real-time need, go into their inventory of beds and deliver those requests. We have another church that does that with sheets. They have a bed sheet ministry. And so they just gather different size sheets and comforters and pillows and bedding. And so whenever they see a need for that, then they just have that in their inventory and they go meet those needs. And so there's so many ways that churches are creative And like you said, I think in the very beginning, it's not Florida 127. It is that church and the way that they have, been called to meet the particular needs in the child welfare system to support children and families. And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So let's go to the next slide. So also what is unique, and I share this mainly for any of us who are our system of care partners out there, it's a little bit of a different solution. A lot of the contracted partners out there, when a caseworker makes a referral for, let's say, counseling, it has to be accepted because that's part of the way the child welfare system works. When we engage volunteers, it's a little bit different because we're sending out that need in real time to a group of volunteers in a certain area. We don't know for sure if the supply and the demand are going to meet. So there are times when, unfortunately, needs are not met. But the good news is what happens when those points, we do run at about, our goals for success is between 60 and 75%. We do run in the Tampa Bay area about a solid 70%, which means for every 10 needs that come in, we're able to engage partners to meet 7 of those. But the other part is it's also an awareness, because when we've got individuals receiving the email notifications, when we got individuals scrolling through the website and seeing needs, maybe they're not meeting those needs right away, but through time and attention, awareness grows and it gives them in that opportunity. Just like Pastor Ron talked about, we can start it at pity, then it grows into sympathy. But the more time they see real-time needs with real-life stories in their area, it helps build empathy. And then our support, we work with churches and we do local monthly trainings. We train volunteers how to meet needs, how to connect with kiddos that have been through trauma, how to work with families in poverty. So we're bringing that sympathy into empathy, and with knowledge and skills and training, we really unleash their ability to be compassionate. So although we don't meet all the needs, there's a lot of awareness work that's being done in and through our community just by sharing these needs every day. So, and we are accepting new churches. We want to grow our network. We have an open opportunity for new church partners in Pinellas and in Pasco to enter into. We will support you. We will train you. We will motivate you, coach you, and help you do this work together. And that's where I want to, yeah, go ahead. You were right there. That was perfect. Next slide. Thank you. Really, so that's our goal, is we are what's called the implementing partner. We manage Care Portal for the Tampa Bay area. We're the contracted partner with Care Portal for Hillsborough County, Pasco, and Pinellas. My role, Kristen's role, is to recruit churches, train and equip the churches. We also then train and equip our agency partners. So Florida 127 serves as that gatekeeper and also that balance on the fulcrum there. If we had too many requests coming in, our volunteers get overwhelmed, and then our caseworkers feel not responded to. So our goal is to get a good balanced network. So we are actively asking and seeking new church partnerships so that we can give more access to agency partners. So I have, I have quite a list of agency partners in Pinellas that want access to Care Portal. We're just not ready yet because we need some more churches and community partners on board. So right now what we're doing is we've given access through 2 of FSS groups. One is the STEPS group that was mentioned earlier. And as we bring in more churches, we will give more access to our community agency partners. For example, in Hillsborough County, since we've been at it for over 2.5 years, we have given access to social workers in the school board, in the school. We've given access to some pregnancy centers. We've given access to most of the child welfare agencies from the spectrum of prevention, foster care, adoption, and kinship. So really, it's a mature network. Pasco and Pinellas, we're new in the area. We officially launched in July, and we continue to grow it because it's a slow growth process, but it has great impact. And so that's our goal as Florida 127, is to have that balanced network. So let's go to the next slide. So we have a unique opportunity. I'm really happy, just excited to share about this. at the end of this year, December, my wife, Rachel, and I, we were honored as the Tampa Bay Lightning Community Heroes. And if you're familiar with that award, you know, praise God that our Tampa Bay Lightning chooses a community hero every home game, and they donate $50,000 to a nonprofit. So we were awarded, and we donated the $50,000 to, of course, Florida 127. So we are using a portion of that as funds to any churches that enroll in Pinellas or even in Pasco. If they enroll in response to today's event, we can get you equipped, trained, and ready, and we can even give up to $1,000 in a Care Portal fund for you to meet some needs. So if you're interested, if you know a church, if you represent a church, you can connect with us and mention that you learned about us through this group, and we can help make that happen. So really, it's an opportunity for you to get some manna from heaven to help go out and meet needs and help build those relational opportunities. So I'm excited about that. And I think the next slide is the last one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That's our call to action. If you are a church or you have a church partner or a community that wants to help meet needs, if you could back up just one second. That is actually the previous slide. You can go to florida127.org/careportal. If you're smart and you have your smartphone, you can actually scan this QR code right now, and it'll take you to that site. And then also you can email us as well. So the last slide has my contact information as well as Kristen's contact. So that's our canned part. You know, FSS and Focus, we thank you for inviting us. This is an amazing group. I've just been very pleased to be part of. We are here to do the work with you and alongside of you. And if we can help in any way, please reach out. And I'll give it back to Jacqueline.
Thank you again, Brian and Kristen, for sharing ways that anybody on this call can get involved with Care Portal. And I also want to extend the invite on our behalf of FSS. Our team is more than welcome to come to your churches, your organizations, share our mission, our call to action of items, share about how you can get involved in becoming a foster or adoptive parent. I know my information was on the screen a little bit earlier. I am more than happy to put my contact information in the chat right now. For any of you who are interested in learning more or just want to connect more on a one-on-one level, more than happy to do that. But again, I cannot thank you all for spending the morning with us. And again, I just really want to go ahead and thank the Focus Planning team for putting this together and allowing us the opportunity. I'll turn it over to anybody on the Focus Team Planning Committee if there's any closing remarks that you'd like to add.
Yes, hello, this is Adrienne Conwell, Chair of Focus, and we just want to thank everyone who did participate in today's webinar, and thank you to all the providers who also participated. Have a great day.